Alice Fredenham stepped onto the Britain's Got Talent stage and instantly captured the hearts of millions around the world. There was something about her that people couldn't ignore. She looked nervous, quiet, almost fragile. But the moment she started singing, the entire room changed. Simon Cowell gave her one of the biggest compliments he has ever given a contestant, calling her voice liquid gold. Her audition quickly became one of the most watched performances in the show's history. It seemed like the beginning of an incredible success story. But what happened after the show shocked everyone. Alice had all the talent needed to become the next global star, yet she chose to walk away from the spotlight completely. And the reason behind that decision was far darker and more heartbreaking than most people ever imagined. Why would someone finally achieve their dream and then disappear the moment the world embraced them? The truth about Alice Fredenham's life behind the scenes tells a very different story from the one people saw on television. Alice Fredenham started out like many people chasing a dream that felt almost impossible. There was something deeply emotional and delicate about her personality that instantly drew people in. She didn't feel polished or manufactured. She felt real. But despite the fame she would later receive, her first experience in the spotlight actually ended in painful rejection. Before Britain's Got Talent, Alice first appeared on The Voice UK in 2013 at the age of 28. With nerves hidden behind dark eyeliner and a soft smile, she stepped onto the stage and performed the jazz classic The Lady is a Tramp. It should have been a breakthrough moment. But when the song ended, not a single judge turned their chair around. The silence that followed was devastating. It was the kind of rejection that crushes your confidence and stays with you long after you leave the stage. Alice walked away embarrassed and defeated, carrying the echo of that failure with her. For most people, that moment would have ended the dream completely. But strangely enough, that rejection became the thing that pushed her toward another opportunity. And that second chance would change her life forever. After The Voice, Alice secretly decided to audition for Britain's Got Talent. She didn't tell her family. She didn't tell her friends. She didn't even tell her boyfriend at the time. She kept the entire thing hidden because deep down, she wasn't sure she could survive another public rejection. But this secret decision would become one of the biggest turning points in her entire life. There was just one major problem. Alice suffered from severe stage fright. This wasn't ordinary nervousness. Her body would tremble. Her voice would freeze. Anxiety would completely take over her mind before performances. It made her feel like she wasn't worthy, even though her talent clearly said otherwise. But on the night of her audition, something was different. The moment Alice began singing My Funny Valentine, the atmosphere inside the theater changed instantly. The audience fell silent. The judges stared in disbelief. Her voice sounded haunting, emotional, and completely unique. It wasn't just technically beautiful. It felt honest. Simon Cowell, a man famous for rarely showing emotion, leaned forward during the entire performance. And when she finished, he delivered a compliment nobody watching would ever forget. He told Alice she had a voice like liquid gold. Just like that, Alice Fredenham became an overnight viral sensation. Her audition exploded across the internet. Millions of people watched the clip and shared it everywhere. Fans became emotionally attached to her story almost instantly. She looked like someone destined to win the entire competition. But sometimes dreams that rise too quickly come crashing down just as fast. And behind the scenes, things were already starting to fall apart. When Alice returned for the semifinals, the pressure was overwhelming. Fans expected another magical performance. The judges expected perfection. But backstage, Alice was struggling badly. She had rehearsed one song for the performance, only to be told at the last minute to switch to something else. That sudden change completely shattered her confidence. Her stage fright came roaring back stronger than ever. During the semifinal performance, she looked visibly nervous and uncomfortable. Her voice still sounded beautiful, but the magic people felt during her audition seemed harder for her to reach. Sadly, Alice was eliminated from the competition. The woman who had stunned millions only weeks earlier disappeared from the stage almost as quickly as she had arrived. For fans, it was heartbreaking. But even after her elimination, most people believed this was only the beginning of her story. Surely record labels would rush to sign her. Surely albums, interviews, and world tours were right around the corner. She had the voice. She had the audience. She had the emotional connection that artists spend years trying to build. But strangely, none of that really happened. After the show ended, Alice became quieter and quieter. Her social media slowed down. Public appearances became rare. There were no major announcements about albums or tours. And within months, it almost felt like she had vanished entirely from the public eye. Fans everywhere started asking the same question. What really happened after the cameras stopped rolling? Behind the scenes, there actually were serious conversations about turning Alice into a major music star. Industry executives noticed her popularity immediately, and shortly after Britain's Got Talent, Sony Music reportedly offered her a demo deal. It wasn't a full contract, but it was still a huge opportunity many contestants never even receive. Alice entered the studio and began recording demos. For a moment, it looked like everything was finally coming together. But then the opportunity quietly disappeared. Sony decided not to move forward with a full album release. No official explanation was publicly given, but reports suggested the music simply didn't fit the commercial sound the label wanted at the time. Alice had a unique style rooted in vintage jazz and emotional ballads. The industry wanted modern pop hits. And unfortunately, those worlds didn't fit together easily. For Alice, this rejection became deeply personal. She had already struggled with anxiety and confidence throughout her journey. Now it felt like the music industry itself was rejecting her identity as an artist. And that disappointment only made everything worse. Over the following year, Alice continued trying to pursue music independently, but the momentum she once had slowly faded away. Her official website eventually disappeared. Her social media accounts became inactive. Fans noticed there were no updates, no announcements, and no explanations. Alice simply faded quietly from public view. But there was another layer to this story that many people didn't fully understand at the time. In interviews after Britain's Got Talent, Alice openly admitted she struggled with severe performance anxiety. Her stage fright was so intense that it sometimes caused panic attacks before public performances. Think about that for a moment. Millions of people wanted to hear her sing, but every performance came with overwhelming fear and emotional exhaustion. And the reality of the music industry only made things harder. Constant public attention. Endless criticism online. Pressure to stay active on social media every single day. Pressure to constantly promote yourself. For someone already battling anxiety and self-doubt, the entire system became emotionally draining. Even though Alice clearly had the talent to connect with people through music, the business side of fame felt completely incompatible with who she was as a person. Slowly, she began stepping further and further away from spotlight. By 2016, Alice had almost no digital presence left. Her album was still available online, but there were no signs of new recordings, interviews, or performances. Fans who discovered her through her viral audition couldn't tell whether she was taking a temporary break or leaving the music industry forever. Many people believe the sudden global attention played a much larger role in her disappearance than most realized at the time. Going from anonymity to worldwide fame almost overnight can overwhelm even experienced performers. For someone already struggling emotionally, the pressure can become unbearable. And just like that, Alice Fredenham, the woman whose voice once moved millions, disappeared into silence. For years, fans heard almost nothing. It looked like her story had ended completely. But then, just when people had nearly stopped searching for updates, something unexpected happened. A new video appeared online. Alice was singing again. This time, though, there were no giant television stages or dramatic spotlights. Her return to music happened quietly. She began performing at smaller events like charity concerts and local showcases. Many of these performances weren't heavily promoted. Some were only discovered through flyers, local listings, or word of mouth. And honestly, that seemed intentional. These smaller environments gave Alice more control and less pressure. She could sing without carrying the emotional weight that came with national fame. It was a completely different kind of music career. At the same time, Alice began exploring independent ways to release her own music. Without major label support after her Sony deal ended, she turned to crowdfunding. In early 2015, she launched a Kickstarter campaign to fund her debut album. The goal was £30,000. To the surprise of many people, fans responded in a huge way. The campaign raised more than £40,000, proving that even after years away from mainstream attention, there were still thousands of people who believed in her voice. That kind of loyalty is rare. The album that followed was called Under the Covers. It featured jazz and soul classics and stayed completely true to the style audiences originally fell in love with. Alice didn't try to reinvent herself into a commercial pop artist. She remained authentic, emotional, and timeless. Fans and music bloggers who heard the album praised it for its honesty and emotional depth. Many felt she had stayed true to herself in a way many reality show contestants fail to do once fame arrives. But despite the positive response, the album struggled commercially. Without a major label, there was almost no marketing, no radio promotion,
no massive interviews,
no viral social media campaign. The album quietly arrived and quietly faded away outside of her loyal fanbase. Fans hoped the release would lead to a bigger comeback. Maybe another album. Maybe more performances. Maybe even a return to television someday. But once again, Alice slowly retreated from public life. Her social media became inactive again. Her website disappeared. Questions from fans went unanswered. There was no public drama.
no emotional farewell.
Just another quiet disappearance. As the years passed, speculation about Alice continued growing. Some people believed she chose to focus on her personal life. Others believed the emotional and financial challenges of working independently became too exhausting. Many pointed to the intense pressure of the music industry itself, especially for artists who don't naturally fit commercial expectations. And honestly, looking back at her story, it's difficult not to feel sympathy for her situation. Alice clearly had extraordinary talent. But talent alone is not always enough to survive fame. By 2016, her comeback attempt had quietly faded away. There were no signs of another album. No major performances. Nothing. 4 years afterward, fans continued searching online, leaving comments under old videos and wondering the same thing over and over again. Where is Alice Fredenham now? Then, in 2023, fans finally received an answer. A local newspaper called the Hertz Advertiser attempted to contact Alice for an update about her life and career. They received no response. Soon afterward, Cherry Red Records, the label connected to her album, confirmed something many fans had feared for years. Alice Fredenham had retired from the music industry and wished to keep her privacy. The statement was simple, but it carried enormous weight. For fans who had followed her journey since 2013, it felt like the final chapter had officially closed. 4 years, many still hoped she might eventually return on her own terms. Maybe another album. Maybe smaller performances. Maybe one more song. But now, the word retired was attached to her name permanently. Since then, there have been no official updates about Alice. She no longer appears in music industry circles. She hasn't been seen at public events or local showcases. Searching her name online mostly leads back to archive footage, fan discussions, and her unforgettable Britain's Got Talent audition. And yet, despite all the silence, interest in her story never disappeared. Fans still leave comments saying her music helped them through difficult times. Others continue revisiting her audition years later because it still feels emotional and genuine in a way many performances don't. For many people, Alice represented something rare in reality television. She felt sincere, unpolished, human. There was even an unverified rumor shared among fans that someone once sent Alice flowers anonymously to thank her for her music and later received a handwritten thank you note in return. Nobody knows if the story is true, but people continue sharing it because they want to believe she's still out there somewhere, living quietly and peacefully away from spotlight. Whether Alice will ever return to music remains unknown. Nothing suggests she plans to release new material or step back into the spotlight. And considering her past struggles with anxiety and performance pressure, it's possible leaving the industry was the healthiest decision she could make for herself. But even if she never sings publicly again, her voice already left a lasting impact. Music has a strange way of surviving long after the artist disappears. A single performance can live forever in the memories of the people who experienced it. And for Alice Fredenham, that seems to be exactly what happened. Perhaps one day, she'll release another song. Perhaps not. But either way, her story remains a reminder that not every artist wants fame, and not every talented person needs the spotlight to find meaning in their work. And maybe that's what makes Alice Fredenham unforgettable. One quiet woman. One haunting voice. One unforgettable audition. And even now, years